Good morning, Beaumont. Well, Bill King, a fellow I know over in the Houston area, wrote a little bit of stuff here. Bill King is, of course, a notorious anti-Trumper, and I would call him a rhino. He does claim to be a Republican, but every now and then he puts out something that's relatively insightful, and I wanted to share it with you. He said about a month ago, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem held a press conference to announce that 1.6 million illegal aliens have left the United States population. There was a lot of eye-rolling among the journalists comparing Noem's claim to Attorney General Pam Bondi's claim that Donald Trump's drug interdiction policies have saved 258 million lives, which of course would be roughly 75% of the U.S. total population, not including the illegal aliens. However, in the week since Noem's announcement, several data points have come in that suggest her estimate may be reasonably accurate and indeed perhaps a little too low. In August, the Pew Foundation received an estimate that the foreign-born population in the United States declined from 53.3 million at the beginning of the year to 51.9 million by the end of June, a decline of 1.4 million in just 6 months. The Pew report notes that the January count of 53.3 million was the largest number ever recorded, and that the decline this year will be the first decline in the immigrant population since the 1960s. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it just talks about immigrants, doesn't mention the fact that those are all illegal aliens. That's right. I've been telling you for years that the illegal alien population in the United States was probably closer to 65 or 70 million. In Houston, we have a huge number. In fact, in Texas, I can assure you there's at least 12 million illegal aliens here in Texas. I digress. About the same time, the Center for Immigration Studies estimated that the foreign-born population fell by 2.2 million in the first 7 months of the year. This estimates that 1.6 million of those who left were in the country illegally, and if the estimate is correct, it would indicate that about 600,000 illegal aliens left, despite having the option to do things to legally stay here. The CIS report indicates that it relied in part on a report from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which tracks the number of foreign-born workers. Badly, I might add, but nonetheless. The Bureau of Labor Statistics data shows that the number of foreign-born workers peaked in March at 32.2 million. It fell to 30.8 million by August, and that's a decline of 1.4 million people. So even so, the level remains historically high, and the numbers appear to stabilize in the late summer. Last week, the Congressional Budget Office updated its demographic projections based on changes in immigration patterns and enforcement since the beginning of the year. It lowered its projection for the population in 2055 from 372 million to 367 million. The current population is about 350 million. So their projection suggests that the U.S. will only add 17 million new residents over the next 30 years. In my opinion, that's too many. This will be the slowest population growth in the country's history. It also projects that the natural population growth, births minus deaths, will turn negative in 2031. At that point, any population growth will be entirely dependent upon incoming immigrants. The Congressional Budget Office's numbers still assume growth from immigration this year and in subsequent years. That certainly seems unlikely, at least for this year, given all the preliminary data showing that many illegal aliens have already left the country. If the U.S. population declines this year, it will be only the second time in the country's history. The only other time was in 2021 at the height of the COVID plandemic. There will always be those who decry the lower population trajectory as a calamity and those who celebrate it as a blessing. But the truth is, we are in uncharted territory. Classical economic theory holds that the change in economic activity is the sum of the changes in population and productivity, implying that a population decline will lead to economic contraction. However, many argue that there are conditions today that will distort that classical theory. These include the negative impacts of dysfunctional immigration systems, the decline in proclivity of illegal aliens to assimilate, and the potential massive increase in productivity driven by technology and especially artificial intelligence. However, all of these opinions about the advantages or disadvantages of slower population growth, or perhaps even a population that is declining, are nothing but speculation on that point. For 250 years, companies, institutions, governments, policymakers, and investors have been basing decisions on the assumption that our population will continue to grow each year. At a minimum, this new trajectory will require a major reset of those long-standing assumptions. Well, Mr. King, I want to thank you for that, because I do find that it's insightful, and I think we need to know these things. The truth is, we need to do what they're doing in Russia now, and that is paying an additional bonus to men and women that get married and have children. And it should always be done in that order. This is what has created civilization. Boy meets girl, boy wants what girl has, girl produces children after they get married, and then the boy spends the rest of his life trying to earn enough money to take care of his family. And that, my friends, is what drives innovation and society. We have completely destroyed that in America because we have gotten prayer out of school. And when we got prayer out of school, we got morals out of school. That's why I'm so happy that now we have decided to put the 10 Commandments back in every classroom in Texas, being the third or fourth state to do so. Now, a lot of the leftists are worried that people are going to read the 10 Commandments and follow them. Oh, my God. And that means that public school teachers are no longer going to have as many playmates as they had hoped to have. And you've seen it. You've seen how many men and women public school teachers have taken advantage of their charges and broken their oath to the American people. We can only hope that if we can get, as Donald Trump said yesterday, religion back in school, that we might be able to save America. I should remind you that when we talk about religion, some people are going to want to include Islam in that. But remember, Islam is not a religion. It is a political and a military conquest system. Because in Islam, even according to Grok, there is no way to guarantee your salvation. The only thing that Islam guarantees is that you must kill the infidel where you find him. And in Islam, the infidel is anyone who's not as good a Muslim as you perceive yourself to be. We need to eradicate Islam if there's ever going to be peace in the world, because the only way that you ever have peace in Islam is when you have killed every Muslim except for yourself. In other news, a crazed Muslim broke into a wedding and killed somebody. He broke into the wedding, he kicked the door down and began yelling, "Free Palestine." Hunter Nadeau is his name. He's 23 years old. He's charged right now with second-degree murder, but I think it should be first, of Robert DeCesar, age 59, at the Sky Meadow Country Club in Nashua, New York. Several people were injured in the incident. Many got injured while they were trying to run away from the gunfire. Witness Tom Bartleson of Pepperell, Massachusetts, said the gunman was babbling, also saying the children are safe and free Palestine while he was shooting. They were getting together for a dance for the bride and groom. Then all of this chaos happened. This guy busted down the door, came in, and began shooting. The evidence leads to believe more likely Mr. Nadeau was simply trying to make a number of statements and create chaos in the movement, according to Republican Attorney General John Formella, but I'd say he is wrong. At this point, I believe this was a hate crime. But here's the good news. He kicked the door open, and a hero stepped up and did his best to stop him. His only thought was to take care of his family, and his daughter is also going to be getting married in 6 weeks, and now he won't be there for that. So they've arrested the guy, but this is going to be a very sad case. Robert DeCesar was a hero. When everyone else was running away, he ran toward the shooter and did his best to stop the shooter. So we're glad that he did that. But there's no question that this is once again another Islamic killing. The problem with Islam is you must kill the infidel where you find him. That's not an option in Islam. It can't be gotten rid of. And Most of you would be afraid to ask a Muslim if you have to kill the infidel where you find him. And of course, most Muslims are at that point going to rely upon the doctrine of taqiyya, and they're going to say, oh no, of course not. That was the old days. Well, I'm just telling you that Islam is a religion of peace at one point. When there are only two mullahs left and one of them manages to kill the other one, then there will be peace in Islam. But nothing less than that is going to make Islam the religion of peace, because you have to kill the infidel where you find him. Donald Trump and Health and Human Services Secretary Robert Kennedy are now announcing the fact that Tylenol use during pregnancy can contribute to an autism diagnosis after the child is born. There's no question that autism is at an all-time high in the United States, and it has been linked to vaccines. For instance, in Europe, they had virtually no autism until they started using American vaccines. But this Tylenol use once again indicates what I've known for a long time. There are no drugs that you can introduce into the human body that do not have some side effects that may be unpleasant. So, what they're announcing is based on umbilical cord blood test, high levels of Tylenol appear to be directly connected to autism in young children. They also have announced that there's a deficiency in the vitamin folate, also known as B9, and that can contribute to autism as well. So RFK said that his agency is going to report about the causes of autism explosions in the U.S. population by this month. President Trump pledged to address America's rising rate of autism and to do so with gold standard science. So here we are. We're now getting it. This is not fringe science. They have really studied this, folks. Once this study is published, and it will be co-authored by the Dean of Harvard's Chan School of Public Health, they have concluded that immediate steps should be taken to advise pregnant women to limit their intake of acetaminophen or Tylenol. We recommend judicious use, the lowest effective dose for the least amount of time if we're going to solve this problem. Well, I am all for that, guys. We need to do something. And on that note, I'll see you guys tomorrow.
You have a choice, and you chose Freedom 1300.